Welcome, everyone. My name is Olia. I lead developer experience at Rootstock Labs. Rootstock is the first and longest running Bitcoin sidechain. What makes Rootstock special is that it is fully EVM compatible, so developers can write smart contracts in Solidity and also use an extensive EVM compatible developer toolchain. We've designed this particular series to make sure that you are fully equipped to build on Bitcoin with Rootstock. So we walk you through a variety of different integrations and developer tools. Today, we are talking about a very cool project called Cookbook. And those guys literally build everything they build with an idea to improve developer experience, which is very applaudable. And we have Michael. Very happy to have you here today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Olia. Thanks for having me on. My name is Michael Dankanich. I'm the head of developer relations at Cookbook.dev. As Olia mentioned, at Cookbook, we really focus on developer experience, developer quality of life. And in a nutshell, the platform is built kind of as like a template library for Web3 developers that we augment with a lot of different little tools or educational components to make it really easy to onboard and grow your career as a Web3 and Solidity developer.
Nice one. Right, super excited. Before we dive in, Michael, could you maybe tell us a little bit how the project came along? And how you met the rest of your team and where does it all come from?
Yeah, totally. The Cookbook project or company has been around, I think, a little over two and a half years now, maybe. I've been on the team for about a year and 8 months. I think that before it was called Cookbook, it was called maybe Smart Contract Recipes or something along those lines, and was really focused on smart contract templates, right? Like one of the great properties of the EVM and Ethereum is that you can reuse code relatively easily because of the open source kind of culture behind the technology. So when you're starting a project in Web3 or with an EVM-compatible chain, you don't really have to start from scratch. And I think that's a big superpower for developers where you can really go into like almost a production level dApp relatively quickly by reusing somebody else's code. So historically, Cookbook has been kind of a smart contract template library. This year and last year, we've been focused a lot on AI assistance and helping developers in Web3 learn about Solidity and actually get to their first deployment using AI in kind of a safe and mindful way. So not just generating a bunch of code with something like ChatGPT and throwing it on chain, but really trying to use the tool in the most mindful, productive way.
Nice one. Yeah, it is become a little scary to use AI agents and what code actually ends up on chain. But something that I think is very special about Cookbook.dev is that the project was designed specifically to help developers within the Web3 ecosystem, because you all know how difficult it is to get started. So yeah, right. Shall we jump into it? Michael, do you have a little demo?
So what I'll do today is I'll walk everybody through the Cookbook platform first. I'll kind of show off how to do an easy deployment to Rootstock. I'm using some of our favorite methods, and then I'll dive into our Rootstock Cookbook integration and show off a little bit about how developers and just everyday users can onboard to Rootstock directly through the official developer docs using Cookbook's tool.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and dive into it and start showing off the Cookbook platform. Okay, so here we have the Cookbook.dev main website. I'll kind of just point out the most interesting parts of the website and then go into the Rootstock-specific stuff. So here under the Contracts tab, we have Cookbook's Smart Contract Template Library. You can see that we've hand-curated over 1,900 smart contract templates for our users and developers to research, kind of hack with, learn about, fork, and then use to actually build production dApps. So everything that you see in our contract list is something that we've added ourselves as a team from Cookbook. So you have some kind of level of security. I won't say guarantee, but everything here that is audited has a link to the audit. So if you're building with a Cookbook smart contract template, you can at least know that the code that you're receiving is the same code that's on chain that has been battle tested in the sense. And if there's an external audit and if you're not changing the code, you can have some confidence that all the code that you get from Cookbook is, in a sense, production ready. We always do recommend that before you do go to production, even if you're using a template that's already audited, get another audit. But essentially, with this contract template library, you can search in plain text or filter through keywords. So if you want to start a project that requires a token, you can select this keyword filter token and get dozens of different smart contract templates for tokens with different mechanics. So we can see the most popular one here is OpenZeppelin's simple ERC20 token. So we can use that just for demo purposes. Once you open up the contract templates, we do a couple of things to make your life as a developer a little bit easier. All of the functions within this simple ERC20 token smart contract are kind of broken down here. So you can see just at a glance what each of those calls would do. And then you can go into the source code here and actually do some interesting things. So for more simpler contracts on Cookbook, you can do no-code deploys. So you essentially just pass your arguments. So if it's a simple token, we can do something like test as a token name, test as a token symbol. We can set our supply to kind of a random amount, and we'll select 18 over here. This denotes that we're working with a token rather than an NFT. This is a decimal count. And then we'll go ahead and connect our wallet. And from here, we have, well, normally if this would work and not a live demo, we would have the option to select some chains. Here we'll be able to select a chain on testnet or mainnet and deploy directly through the Cookbook website. Beyond our no-code deploy on Cookbook, my preferred route for deploying kind of more simpler contracts or protocols is through the Ethereum Remix IDE. So I close all of these. We can see that our simple token contract was opened from Cookbook in one click from the website, and then we can go in and simply compile our contract. We can go and change our environment over to Rootstock by going into this deploy and run transactions tab. We'll select injected provider MetaMask, and then we'll go into our MetaMask and go ahead and change our network to either the Rootstock testnet or mainnet. And then to deploy the simple token, just like on the Cookbook website, we could just pass in our arguments as test for the name, test for the symbol, essentially a random supply. And then just like that, we've deployed a token to the Rootstock test network. And really just a few clicks, right? We found our template on Cookbook. We opened it in our web IDE, which is Remix. We changed our network over to the Rootstock testnet, passed our arguments, and deployed our token just like that. So it's kind of the same workflow for any of the contract templates if you're using Remix as an IDE through Cookbook. It doesn't have to be a token. It can be a DEX contract, a DAO contract, a lending contract. For more, let's say, beefier, larger protocols, you might want to use something like our Foundry Hard Hat or Scaffold ETH boilerplates. Essentially, you can just download these for any of our contracts. So besides the smart contract templates, Cookbook does also templatize entire protocols. Popular ones you might recognize here, like OpenSea, Uniswap. These protocol templates are really similar to our smart contract templates, except that they'll have each of the contracts that make up the protocol. So we have the same feature where you can see the functions broken down in a small description. We also have a little bit of information about the protocol, and then you can go in and download those same boilerplates or work with, in this case, Uniswap v3 in Remix, or we do have support for Chain IDE, another web IDE that'll open it up in one click. We do have dozens of libraries on Cookbook as well. So if you go into any of these, it essentially just breaks down different contracts that are within that library in the same format as our contract templates and protocol templates. So you can learn about them, fork them. And I will point out, we also have our Chef GPT AI assistant available for each of our contract templates, each of our protocol templates, and our libraries, where you can actually go ahead and ask questions about how the contract works, individual functions within that contract. And our AI assistant has context specifically for the protocol contract or library that you're working with. So you should be able to get some really good actionable answers in real time as you're building. So we've covered contracts, protocols, libraries. We do have chain resources pages for over 90 networks right now. So if we search Rootstock, we get a bunch of handy outlinks to everything that you as a developer would need to start building on Rootstock. So for instance, we can one-click add the Rootstock testnet or mainnet to our wallet. I already have them added. We can go ahead and we can hit a faucet to get some testnet tokens. We can find the block explorers, bridges, etc. And we also have a couple of resources on building on Rootstock, and then our own instance of Chef GPT, our AI assistant that is specifically trained on Rootstock context and documentation. So we can ask anything about Rootstock right on the Cookbook website and just get real-time answers like that. So just as a very, very quick recap, we covered finding contract templates, protocol templates, library templates on the Cookbook website, as well as finding resources on chains like Rootstock right within Cookbook. The last thing that I'll point out on the actual Cookbook website is that while we have kind of hand curated all of these contracts, if there is a smart contract that you'd like to work with that's not on Cookbook, you can go over to this import contract tab and then drop a contract address for a verified contract. It does say Etherscan, but I think we support around 12 explorers right now. So if it's on something like Base or a different network, you can also grab the contract address, drop it in there, import it, and then essentially you'll be able to work with any contract in the same way as the ones that we've templatized. You'll get the same exact UI. So if there's something that you'd like to learn about or work with that's not already on Cookbook, don't worry, you can still do that completely on your own. And if there's ever anything that you want to see added to the Cookbook website, you can jump into our Discord that's linked up here. We take requests all the time, and we'll get your project or protocol or contract listed on Cookbook. So now I'll dive into our actual Rootstock integration here in the official Rootstock technical docs. So over at dev.rootstock.io, we can see this cool Ask Rootstock button over here. So this opens up Cookbook's tool, and you can do a couple of really kind of helpful things as a developer in here. So first we have our AI chatbot UI. You can ask any question about Rootstock and get an actionable answer in real time as you're building. So I just asked, how do I get started? And we get a breakdown right here in just a second. So I can continue asking questions, or I can kind of go into building. So our next tab here is the chain info tab, which is essentially a mini version of the Rootstock chain info page on the Cookbook website baked into the technical docs. So you can go ahead and add the networks to your wallet in one click. You can go ahead and hit a faucet if you need to find any resources for building on Rootstock. They're all listed here for you in a really handy way. So I do have both networks added to my wallet. I have already hit the faucet. I'll just kind of open it up for everybody to see. So you can just go ahead and drop your Rootstock address in here, get some testnet tokens, and then jump over into this playground tab that's in the docs as well. So what we did is essentially baked in our entire Cookbook smart contract template library into these docs along with the code editor, so developers can actually deploy not only examples, but really entire protocols and projects to Rootstock within their technical docs. So we'll stick with the simple ERC20 token example from earlier for simplicity. And we can see that we've opened up our token. We have our source code over here, and we have our AI chatbot UI right next to us in case we have to ask questions along the way. So there's a couple of things that we can do here. If we want to keep everything very simple, we can simply compile and do a no-code deploy to the Rootstock testnet or mainnet. So let's do one to the testnet again. We'll just name our token test again. We'll make the symbol test again, and then we'll add our arbitrary supply. So we'll select our decimal count at 18 again and select deploy over here, pay our tiny network fee, and then we can go into MetaMask and actually kind of follow our deployment over here. So we can see that it's pending. If we open it up on the Block Explorer, once it confirms in a couple seconds, we would have deployed our first token directly from the Rootstock docs. So we can see that the status has shifted to successful, and we've gone ahead and created our contract. So we've just done that with a simple token. We can also go ahead and go back into Remix, our web IDE, in one click from the Rootstock docs if we'd like to deploy any of the examples from there. as well as access our Foundry hard hat and scaffold ETH boilerplates directly from the documentation as well. So, we use the simple token example, but there's really hundreds, even thousands of contracts that you can work with. So just to show you guys a little bit of a difference, for example, if you wanted to deploy a NFT to Rootstock using this ERC 721A standard, you can go ahead and essentially follow that same workflow as the token. You compile it, and once you go into deploy, you can select your testnet or mainnet, and the only difference is now you'll pass in different arguments. So in this case, like a URI, we can include like a link to where the art or the metadata for the NFT is hosted. We can set a price for our NFT, a limit, and so on, and then deploy that way. So you're really not limited to something like a token when using the Cookbook tool to either learn about Rootstock or build your first project. You can really, you can do an NFT, you can do a staking contract, a DAO contract, a lottery contract. Really, the possibilities are endless with the Cookbook contract templates. And like I mentioned, if there's something that you'd like to work with that is in here, you can always jump into our Discord or import it yourself on the website. So just a quick recap on the Cookbook, just a quick recap on the Rootstock official dev docs. You can jump into this Ask Rootstock button here, ask questions with Cookbook's AI assistant, configure your dev environment or access developer resources in this chain info tab. And in this playground tab, you can hack, deploy, and learn about actual smart contracts in the context of the Rootstock net. So I think that's kind of all I had to demo. If there's any questions or anything that you guys would want me to go into, though, I'm more than happy to kind of extend it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. That was really cool. Deploying directly from the docs. Could it be easier to get started? I guess I've covered pretty much everything. I've got a question for you. Is there anything on the roadmap that's coming to Cookbook that the developers can get excited about? What's coming next?
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff cooking this year. This playground has kind of been our V1 that we introduced last year. So a big thing that we're doing is experimenting with placement in the docs. Right now, it's typically like a pop-up modal that covers the screen. We are experimenting with actually integrating more of like a playground in different sections of the docs alongside code, or maybe on its like code examples or on its own page. So from a developer's perspective, like having a bit of an enhanced UI on the different docs pages like the Rootstock is something to look forward to. For DevRel engineers, we're really beefing up the analytics and kind of the backend admin panel associated with the onboarding tool. So I think that it'll be a better year for kind of getting insight into how developers are approaching onboarding to networks, which I know is a challenge for DevRel engineers everywhere. And then I think that one thing that I'm really personally excited for is improving our AI chatbots to go beyond like Q&A and actually be able to be more agentic and take actions on behalf of developers and users who are kind of prompting them in plain text. So I think that the shift in DevX from writing code to like prompting is something that we're kind of like undergoing in the world right now. So we are trying to stay on top of that at Cookbook and be really mindful on how we release those features so that it's not like taking a step back in DevX and actually improving, the coding experience.
Yeah, 100%. Very cool. We are all about UX at Rootstock Labs this year. So yeah, I feel it. And also, as you say, with all the AI agents and this kind of prompt engineering is the term now, especially for you guys, I guess, when AI is like literally in the center of your product, you kind of really need to carefully see the path where you're going to, as you say, to not like impede, but really help devs and not make the experience worse. How can one get involved? Do you accept contributions? If folks in the community would like to come and build with you, do you have any, do you accept PRs? Are you all open source? How does it work?
So parts of Cookbook are open source. We always accept like smart contract template contributions. So if somebody would like something listed on Cookbook, we kind of manage that though. So it's more of a request system. In the future, there may be a way for anybody to like make a PR into Cookbook and add something. But that's still a bit far away right now. Everything is hand curated. So all of our contracts have, kind of some level of security guarantee. So before we let anybody just add anything to Cookbook, we'll work out a really robust system for making sure that all the contracts added to Cookbook work as expected, and there's no surprises for developers.
Yeah, nice one. Fair enough. Cool. And finally, what does the community hang out?
So if you want to kind of hang out with the Cookbook community, our Discord is the best place to do that. We have it linked in our Twitter bio. Our Twitter is just cookbook_dev. Or if you go to the cookbook.dev website, there's a big Discord button on the main menu, kind of in the top right of the page. So if you jump in there, our team is actually happy to answer Solidity questions if you're working on a project and you're stuck and maybe the AI, it hasn't gotten quite there yet. If you have a niche problem, we're happy to take a look at what you're working on and offer our genuine advice. So if you want to just kind of jam with other developers, jump in there. If you have questions, jump in there. If you want to add a contract, jump in there. If you have questions about Rootstock, I'll be happy to answer them in there as well. So jump in and I'll get you sorted.
Excellent. Sweet. Thanks so much, Michael. Thanks for sharing us. Cookbook.dev. Love the demo. Super helpful to all our audience and developers starting building on Rootstock. I guess that would be it. Yeah. So if you'd like to come join us, come hang out in the Rootstock Discord community, come join Cookbook.dev developer community. Everyone's really friendly. Come hang out, come say hi. And as usual, happy building.
Thanks so much for having me on. And if you're watching, please do try deploy to Rootstock. It's really easy. Jump in the docs, grab a contract, grab some testnet tokens, and get your first deployment on chain. Even if you're not a developer, you might find that you enjoyed it and kind of kick off your path to being a builder on Rootstock. So please go try it out.
Hey, awesome. Thank you. We'll see you soon.